And welcome to this episode of the Sales Today podcast, where I'm delighted to be joined by Chris Von Hewen, who is the sales director at 3D Signals. So, Chris, welcome, sir.
Awesome. Appreciate you having me on, Fred. It's definitely something I'll be looking forward to since we were kind of chit-chatting a little bit earlier and cracking up. So I know this will be a fun one for us.
I'm hoping so, because look, I know we're very much on the same page when it comes to sales. I've seen the stuff you talk about on LinkedIn, and we've had a little chat. So yeah, I just want to explore that a little bit more. As I said to you, it's nice having a real person on.
I know, a person who actually sells, yes.
That's kind of what I was saying. I mean, all sales trainers, we do sell. We have to do that to feed ourselves. But someone who's actually doing this stuff day in, day out and talking about your real life experiences, that's what I meant by that. So it's going to be cool. So just tell us a little bit more about 3D Signals, what it is you're selling, and then we'll kind of come into something I picked up on your approach, which surprised me a little.
Yeah, definitely. So 3D Signals simply, we help manufacturers essentially digitize their factory, which is some nice word salad to basically say, instead of you walking the floor to figure out why your machine is running or not, we basically enable you to see all that on your phone, on a desktop, or a tablet, anywhere you are around the world. And then from there, you can basically start increasing the amount of time your machines run, because manufacturing is all tied to machine uptime. The more the machine runs, the more you produce, the more you make. So our whole goal is get those machines running more, and that's what we do with our solution.
Brilliant, nicely put.
Thank you.
I expect nothing less. No, that's very cool. And we could get into some of the technicalities of that, but I suspect it is quite technical, because
it is.
Well, because the thing that I saw that caught my eye, and I'm going to quote you on something you wrote on LinkedIn, is, in my current role, I'm telling prospects to not buy our entire package in one go.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, you're not trying to maximize your sale.
No.
Why are you a podcast success? What am I doing here?
Right.
But this is interesting. I really want to explore this because it's, talk me through that a little bit.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Like, at the end of the day, yes, we want to make money. We're not in sales for charity work. Let's call it what it is, because half our pay is tied to commissions. But the thing is, there's ways to be short-sighted and there's ways to be kind of long-term sighted. I take more of the long-term approach. So yes, I make the most money if I sold you everything up front. But what I can tell you from past experience is the customers will fail. It's too much of a change, too fast, and too much technology at once. So if we think about it, especially when you're signing your contracts and you're looking at churn and renewals and all that stuff, you're going to churn more, which is going to hurt my ability to sell down the road, right? So I'm really not doing myself any favors by getting a big fat check up front and having you churn on the back end, because then I don't get case studies, I don't get testimonials, I don't get references, and I don't get referrals, right? You had a bad experience. Why would you recommend us? And then professionally, as a sales professional, I'm also tarnishing my own name, because like, well, Chris oversold the solution, or Chris sold me too much and didn't set me up for success. So in my world, the way I look at it, this actually causes a lot of negative things. I'd rather slow down a little bit, build out a longer plan with you, sign a multi-year contract, which is more beneficial for the company and myself, and slowly work through the phases and have you kind of level up once you've kind of gotten through that first, phase or level, and maximize the value. That way you're successful for the long term and you're with us longer as well.
No, this is starting to make a lot of sense. So, I mean, there's so much stuff in there. I've been writing this down. I'm going to come back to lots of bits you said. So,
please,
let me go with the one that you last said there, which is kind of building out the plan.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like? How do you typically do that?
Yeah. So like, let's say a factory, you have like 50 machines that we would potentially want to digitize, right? You have to understand your buyer. So I know my buyer really well. I've done the whole ICP, I've done the interviews, the company, the person, where the industry is, their experience with technology. And to just make it super short, this is not a technologically savvy kind of buyer and market, right? They're very old school, very manual. So technology is something that they're very fearful of. They've implemented their ERP, or in sales term, your CRM, your Salesforce, and that was a disaster for most of them, right? It was.
Yeah.
So they're very afraid of taking on more technology because the experiences that they have were very negative. right? So when you go to that kind of a buyer, you're talking about technology, you just can't be like, here's everything, because it'll be like, well, what the hell? And so when I make a plan, what we do is we go back and let's say we'll choose like 10 to 15 machines that are part of a critical assembly line to produce a widget, right? Like let's say we're producing like an axle for a car,
Mhm.
right? And you're just making the metal pieces of it. So there's like 10 to 15 machines maybe that are involved to make that piece. We want to digitize that production line is what it's typically called, or a cell, because then you see end to end for the first time what's going on when you're producing that part. And that shows proof of value. That also gives them the confidence, and it's enabling them to not fully commit and sign up 50 machines from the get-go, but sign up maybe 10 to 15 machines and see the value. And then what we do is we write expansion plan into the contract based on success criteria of the initial installation batch. So our goal is to digitize the entire factory, connect every single machine that makes sense to connect, and we'll do that in a phased approach so they can actually see it, feel good about it, and then get excited and want to expand further. And then once the whole factory is connected, then we look at selling additional add-ons within the products, because we have base solution in like 3 different tiers and typical SaaS stuff. But again, we need you to kind of go through each level first, maximize the value, get used to it, and then move to the next level. So that's basically why we do the longer contracts, because that all takes time, right? I can't get that all done in 12 months. So that's why we look at 2 to 3 year contracts, because we're building that long-term plan. And that's the kind of relationships I want to build.
Yeah, I like it. So actually, I'll just get a bit of flashback. If you saw me glaze a little bit, my very first job, but first real job after university, was with a company which made stuff not far off widgets, little connectors, pneumatic connectors, big CNC machines, milling brass. So I was kind of,
all this.
I was drifting back to those days and imagining these guys and totally getting that. Yeah, they want to just get on making stuff. And if you start talking to techie, no, and as you say, they've had the fingers burnt. The company's had the fingers burnt on that.
Yeah.
So now I'm also thinking, if you're rocking into them, and fair play, because that would have been in the early 90s, so you'd have had an amazing product. But I'm just thinking that kind of decision, because you sort of said, yeah, no, I understand. You made it sound very easy, by the way. Yeah, I understand the ICP, I understand the buyers and the company. As though that stuff is dead easy. How many people would you be tending to talk to when we talk about decision-making units? How many people you're going to have to engage in that kind of setup? And who are they?
It's at least 3 to 4 people. So we target more on the SMB side. So family-owned businesses, things like that. So you're talking to the CEO, usually the general manager or the VP of operations or the VP of manufacturing. So there's at least kind of those, sort of titles, or an executive vice president. Usually it's at least 3 people, those kind of ranges, operations to manufacturing to the CEO, to work through that. And then you can go all the way down to like, the floor manager, because you need total level buy-in, right? Because just how it can go, the people at the bottom can torpedo this whole thing. So like, oh, it's Big Brother, I'm being watched, and and you don't want all that negative blowback. So sometimes I'll go down to the plant manager, the floor manager, and talk with them as well and say, okay, you're killing yourself doing this manual reporting every single day, right? Like at the end of the day, you have to write down how much time your guys spend, how many parts they produce. You have to type it into Excel or your ERP system. It's always wrong. It's always behind, and you're always having to follow up and ask questions. Now, if you didn't have to do all that, what would you be able to do instead? So you gotta have these conversations with them, get them thinking differently, other than this is trying to take my job. I'm like, no, I'm trying to remove the piece that's absolute hell for you, waste of time. So you can focus on your guys, what, the work orders coming through, and just getting stuff out the door as fast as possible.
Yeah. And then I guess you have financial people that you're also having to talk to as well, or would that kind of be in the?
Not as much, because usually it's like, CEO of the company is the finance, that's final say. So, obviously I put together a return on investment analysis. There's all this financial modeling that I do. I used to do that in a past life. So I'm pretty good at that and built out my own models. and pop that into the proposal presentation. So it is a financial, decision, because at the end of the day, it hits the P&L, and I got to show how we impact in the P&L.
Right. So covering off all the things that you need to do there. No, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm imagining. I've always got a big factory that I worked in, and I can imagine lots of people you've had to talk to. but
Yeah,
important, the user, or the people on the shop floor. I think isn't that the expression where put a spanner in the works comes from? Oh, we don't like this. We're gonna break it deliberately if we don't want it.
Yeah. I mean, like, here's the funny thing. You talk to them about the challenges they have where they can't communicate to their management on why they couldn't run the machine, right? They didn't have the material, it broke, there was unplanned maintenance, there's all this stuff. And I'm like, so you're getting harassed about why this machine isn't working. Wouldn't you like the ability just to clearly communicate and see your numbers in real time on a dashboard so everyone's speaking the same language? And they're like, hell yeah. I'm like, right, that's what we're going to enable you to do. So you got to put it in terms that solve their pains, right? And you got to say, hey, you're going to go from here to here, right? You're in this environment. You don't like that, right? It's not a good use of your time and you're frustrated. Here's how we're going to go alleviate that. Does that sound like something that you would believe to be beneficial?
And they're then on side, and they're going to support you, and they're pushing upwards, saying, "Hey, look, this stuff sounds good. Chris is a good guy. Right. Let's get his stuff there." And so, when you're positioning this, and you say you put the presentation proposal together, do you actually say, because what you said just earlier was that this will fail if you try to do it all at once? I mean, are you that blunt with that language?
Oh, hell yeah. Manufacturers are just straightforward folks. I was like, look, because like they're like, oh, well, we want this integration and this and this. I'm like, that's great. But I'm like, out the door, my number one mission is to get you the fastest ROI I possibly can. So how do we take this whole sea of things you're asking for and boil it down to how you're going to see success in the first 15 days? How are you going to see success in the first 90? And let's just keep setting up this success ladder together, right? And I'm like, the only way to do that I've seen work well for this solution that I sell is by this phased approach. And I always explain my why, right? I think that's a huge thing as a seller that we don't do enough is you need to explain why you're making this recommendation, right? Like don't leave it up to them to jump to conclusions, because then you're not controlling the narrative, and that can get really dangerous for you. So I always tell them, here's why I'm recommending it this way. And once you explain the why and you tell them very bluntly, this is how it goes, and it's tied all back to you. I want you to be successful. I'm successful by default when you're successful, right? This is how it works. So my goal is to make you successful. You stay with us, everything's good. Then what complaints do I have?
I mean, one of the elements of PQ partnering skills that I talk about all the time is interdependence. Like, your success is my success. So I totally want you to get this right. And so the language you're using there is so what I've seen work well, brackets, bear in mind, I do this all the time. It's my job. And actually, I've installed this way more times than you have, which is never. And I've done it loads.
Well, like, here's the thing. I'm the subject matter expert in this small defined area. You're the subject matter expert in your manufacturing shop and how things go. So I'm going to lean on you to help understand the culture, the way things work, internal politics, and all that to figure out how to navigate this. But I'm asking you to lean on me for the best way to ensure your success in this scenario. And that's why we co-author and co-create the success criteria, the scope, the plan and everything. So that way we ensure that we both have ownership of this, and it feels like it was something done in partnership versus me telling you what's going to happen and you just going along with it.
These words are music to my ears.
Yeah.
Of course you do. You're going to read it people and use the words that you know is going to stimulate them. Co-authoring, co-creating, partnership, using those skills. Yeah, absolutely. That is modern way of selling. It's collaborating with them, isn't it? I'm not going to force something, push it at them. You already said, I'm literally not going to push it on you. I'm going to stop you buying it.
Yeah, like even when I do the demo, I don't even demo the full product. I tell them that up front. I said, look, because this is what I do. I walk around your factory, I look at everything, I talk to you, I understand what problems you're going through. Then I say, okay, I'm just going to show you how to solve everything I just saw on the floor today. I'm not going to cover everything in this product because it's not all relevant to you for the immediate win. So I just want to prove to you that I can solve the biggest challenges you just shared with me. And then we can get more complicated down the road. But today, let's just focus on, the problems at hand. that are going to have the biggest impact in the shortest amount of time possible. That's really the only thing I'm interested in figuring out to get you that immediate success and show you that this is worthwhile.
Because while you're walking the job, and is that an important part, you would say, of doing this job, is physically walking the factory and then pointing stuff out and talking it through?
Absolutely huge.
Yeah.
I would not get a deal signed unless I did that factory tour and met them in person. It's an old school industry. You got to fly out and see them.
How did you work in COVID?
I mean, you still flew out.
That's how you work.
Do you
want me to cut this bit of the interview?
No, I mean, like, here's the thing, right? Like, they are in the US, they're considered an essential business, so they're going to stay open. Now, there's policies and safety regulations and all that good stuff to go follow. So obviously, I follow all the rules and do what I'm supposed to go do. But like, you need to be able to walk the floor and see things, because how else can you connect it? This is, it's hardware, software, and coaching services all in one package. If I can't see the problems happening on the floor, and that's what I'm selling you as a solution, then how am I going to connect this so you feel good?
And while you're kind of walking the job and people talking about it, is that almost by default going to get you the biggest challenges? Because that's what they'll point out, that's what they'll say, that's where they'll naturally gravitate towards. It's like, there's 50 machines in here, but here's the 10 that are causing me a real problem. Right, we're physically there, and of course they'll naturally go to those areas.
Not even those areas, it's just the process. I walk around and be like, hey, should that machine be running? They're like, yeah. And I'm like, do you know why it's not running?
Okay.
He's like, no. I'm like, do you know how long it's been down? No. And I'm like, so how does that impact your world? He's like, well, I got to go chase somebody down now. And I'm like, right. So we don't know how long this machine's been down. It's critical to completing your order, and you don't know what's going on. Right. So it's like, when you just start looking at that and just assessing and understand, that's what I mean. I know I glossed over the ICP work. It's actually a hellacious amount of work, but when you know your ICP, you know the questions to ask.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what their pains are. Like, I know your pains are in this range. I just need to kind of cherry pick 2 or 3 that are the biggest headaches for you, and just drill down on that and figure out the impacts to your business.
Another interesting thing there then. So you're saying, actually, that ICP, I could pick from a whole list. I've seen them all. But in this case, it's more likely to be this, this, and this. And now as I get in there, I'm correct. It's actually this and this. Oh, and actually it's the other one. Right, okay, I'll pull that one in. But I'm going to keep it simple, keep it down to 3 perhaps things.
Yeah.
And not
2 to
the
3.
whole hog and heap the pain on more and more and more. So
no, here's the thing. Go deep. You don't need to go wide. Go deep. Right. I think that's what we screw up the most in sales in the disco process, is we try to go wide, but we don't go deep, because it's the, so what? I have 10 million pains. Of course. Great. You help me understand I have 10 million pains. If you didn't connect to the so what and the business impact, it means nothing to me, because how do I prioritize? Right. Think about prioritization. It's usually what's causing me the biggest thorn in my side. So if you don't go deep to figure out how big the thorn is, then I don't really understand how you're going to get that deal all the way through the finish line, when these people are short-staffed, absolutely behind on their deliveries, and there's just no end in sight to the supply chain shortages and the workforce shortages right now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So they're new things coming into play, aren't they? Okay. Cool. I'm going to move into some other questions around what you're talking about, again, referrals and references and the stuff that's happening as a result of your success. But just before we do, because this is just a curiosity in me, I don't know if you can answer this. I'll ask it anyway. If you can't, fine. What's the weirdest factory you've been around, or the kind of the weirdest, the strangest thing that has been made that you've had to witness?
I don't know, strange thing. I mean, like, I've seen all kinds of stuff made. Like, I think one factory that surprised me is, I thought they were like, they use presses to manufacture, I think, fairings. And I had no idea that there was a second company in there that manufactured bullets. So like, when I was just like walking around and I'm thinking, seeing like these little rings, and all of a sudden like, oh yeah, we have a second company too. And I'm like, what? I didn't even, like, I was completely thrown off. I was like, okay, what do you manufacture? They're like, bullets. And I'm like, I had no idea that bullets came out of press machines. Like, I had no clue. So I'm sitting there like, cool. So bigger deal. awesome.
So I don't think we can call you out for poor prep on that one, because it's probably not something massively publicized. It's not there all over the internet and everything else. It
was a completely different company. It was no mention on the other company's website that there's an affiliation. But you got to remember, like, sometimes they will allow multiple businesses that just aren't related on the website, because like if someone's buying a fairing, they're usually not buying bullets, right? So like there's just like there's no reason to go mention the two, companies in that sense. So it was just kind of funny. Like, so it wasn't weird. It was just kind of funny. I'm like, I had no idea there's another company here, but you're using the same machines, just manufacture something different, which in my world doesn't make a difference on the value, the pain, and the challenges you're going through. It's just a bigger deal and there's more stuff to sell. Cool.
Like it. I like it. Okay, so we talked about how you approach it. Talked about you are very direct in, look, my success is your success, so let's set it out like this. Trust me, I've done this a load of times. This will get it. You talked about the success ladder. I love that. Sorry, was it slightly said? So this is the ladder.
Success ladder.
Yeah, I like that. And then from a little bit of a selfish point of view. You want to get this right, because you talk, if I don't get any case studies, I don't get any referrals, I don't get any references,
Yeah.
So you're getting this stuff right. Do you then have for yourself a formal process for getting the case studies, references, referrals? How do you work that side of the business?
I think you look at it more just to see kind of how did the installation go? How's the client doing? Are they seeing success? Like, you got to kind of like ask yourself, is that a client that I feel good about being a reference? You know what I mean? So for me, I kind of look at, okay, how do we do on the installation? How do we do on ramping them? Are they hitting the numbers that we typically advertise? Like, are they kind of falling in that range where we'd want them to be, right? Because again, I sell a solution that provides data to a manufacturer. If they don't utilize the data, then they're not going to get the results, right? Like, so it is, again, back to the partnership. Like, I will do my piece, but if you're not doing your piece, then it's not going to be a good reference then, right? Because it'll be like, well, we installed the system, but we didn't get the results that we were expecting. Well, you also didn't do the work. So I can't do the work for you. So I think you got to really assess it that way. And that's always like in my head, how did this go? If I feel good about it and, we got good rapport, let's go for it. If it's a little questionable, then, just talk with them and just kind of see where their head's at. Right. So you want to know what you're getting into prior to just like throwing it out there, but you're going to have like your go-to, customer references, right? The ones that are just going to be amazing. You got the good relationship. Everything was just clean, good. So you'll go for that. And I think for me, again, it's not a formal process. It's just more, if I had to break it down to a process, how did installation go? How did post sales go? What are the results that they're getting, right? How they feel about the product. And if, all that is green lights, then go ahead and ask and see what they say, kind of thing. If there's some yellow flags there, then maybe you want to kind of talk with them a little bit further and just see if they're open to doing it. If not, then, then don't use them.
Yeah, no draw, no pack draw. Yeah, and you said earlier that part of the package is as well as the hardware, software, and coaching. So that might be factored into the thing to make sure that you're going to having this stuff. You've got to do something with it.
Yeah. I mean, like, we set the expectations properly. I think that's another thing in the pre-sales process. You need to set expectations. What's your side of the, job and work to get done? What's our side of the job and work to get done? Do we understand what needs to happen in order to achieve these KPIs that we're all aligned to?
Yeah. I can put all my stuff in there, but it's not like magic. It's you then have to do something which will be new.
Right. And that's just
people
it,
like
right?
new stuff.
Yeah, like you're selling change. So I'm very blunt. I'm like, you're gonna have to look and do things a little bit differently. We're gonna work with you on that, but like, I can't, like, once we identify an area of opportunity, y'all got to do something with it to bring it to the finish line, right? I can only identify the opportunity for you that, like, hey, this machine's idling a lot longer than it should be. You're saying that, a tool change should only take 10 minutes. That's your standard, but it's taking 30, 40. So we've identified the process for you to go optimize, but you need to go figure out, why is it taking 3x more time? I can't do that for you. My platform doesn't do that. It just highlights the areas to focus on, and then you have to go drill down and remediate that and then see the value.
No. So I mean, customer success is a department in many organizations. Are you the customer success essentially?
No, we have our own customer success
Okay.
team. I'm literally sales, and we hand it off because I'm not account management, right? Like I am, sales. So all the way
Okay.
up from prospecting to signature of contract and installation.
Mhm.
But installation, I start becoming in the background, right? Because then customer success, my install team takes over, and they're the points of contact. So I'm more
Yeah.
in the background if needed. But once they're installed good and going, like my customer success team handles that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like I'll join for like a quarterly business review, and I get all the communications in the back end, but I don't need to be present on everything because I need to go sell.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That might make sense. Makes sense. I don't know whether that, because of the way the business was structured, you were doing that as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. This is for me, again, so much music to my ears, because this for me is collaborative selling. You're just illustrating exactly the stuff that I talk about, that I write about. So it's
Mhm.
it's
Yeah. I mean,
great to
like,
hear it in action.
here's how I'll put it this way. Like if you're not doing it this way, you're creating buyer resistance, you're slowing down the momentum, and you're creating more objections because people buy based on emotions and then back it up with logic. So when I talk with everybody in sales, it's about feelings. Like I say this all the time. How does that feel to you? Right? If there's any
Mm.
hesitations, you're not going to move forward. And I tell people that bluntly. If there's any hesitations that I haven't addressed for you, you're not going to sign that agreement. I know you won't. So before we waste our time doing that song and dance where eventually you tell me no, let's just hash it out very honestly. Is there any concerns or objections moving forward that I haven't answered? And again, it's always my fault. It's never the prospect's fault. I'm like, I didn't do a good job of this, right? And
Yeah.
I will
Yeah.
always fall on my own sword because that's proper salesmanship, in my opinion. But
Mhm.
if you don't handle that, then when it comes down to the contract, you're not signing it, right? And so then it's like, why are we wasting our time then? Let's handle the objection. If we can handle it, great. If not, then we part ways. Like there's two outcomes from that.
When so again, totally. Well, this is great. People buy mostly backup logically. When did the penny really drop for you on that? Thinking back in your sales career.
Oh crap, that's a good question. Now you're making me think. I'd say probably after my first year of like closing deals. It took about a
Hmm.
year for me to like figure it out because there was so much crap back in the day on just, the right magic words and all that. And then yeah, all that stuff. There's a bunch of junk out there on say these magic phrases and you'll close your deals. No, treat a human like a human, focus on the emotions, co-author the plan, knock out any objections, make sure everyone has a voice, and you have a high probability of signing a contract. Like there you go. Um, and so I think it took about a year of me just getting just getting beat up, like screwing up the deals, people ghosting me, people not responding, or all of a sudden just kind of getting weird. I didn't know why. And then I'm like, wait, like I can spew all these numbers, but how do I buy? Like just
Yeah,
stop and
yeah.
think. I don't buy based on logic. I buy like I just bought a pair of shoes. It wasn't logical. Those shoes look really cool. I just used the logic to say they're on sale, so I bought them yesterday. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh,
but
I might not be able to get them again at that price.
right,
Yeah.
right. So I
All
mean,
the
like
money I'm saving.
right. That's why I just convinced myself to go buy. But the reason why I bought them was emotional. Like those are kick-ass, good-looking shoes. I want them. So if I'm buying like that and I'm talking to another human, I'm pretty sure they're thinking the same thing because you can't tell me that the way you buy in your personal life is that different in your business life. Like I'm not gonna believe you, right? Because I
Yeah,
bought
yeah.
software and I know why I bought it. I mean, I did my evaluations and my decision matrix and features and benefits and all that, but it was mainly feeling. If I didn't feel good about the rep, or I didn't feel good about the product, even if it had the best feature softwares, I didn't believe I'd be successful. I'm done.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's the best product. If it doesn't feel right to me, it's my name on the line,
Yeah.
my reputation in the company, potentially my job, depending on how much this product or service costs. So I'm gonna go for the one where I feel the best.
Yeah, I mean, it does make sense, but you can imagine that there might be people doing exactly the same job as you who are not going to be as successful as you, because their thinking will be, this is a product designed for engineers. You know, I'm selling it into an engineering space. You know, it's about data, it's about facts and figures. It is ROI. It's the most logical sale ever, and they'll totally logic bomb people on stuff and not get the response that they're expecting. But why aren't you wowed by this? I'm not feeling it.
But here's the problem, because you didn't engage emotionally. If you don't understand the way the brain works, what is it? I was called the reptilian brain, right? The first level. That's extremely emotional. So if I don't hit you there to get to the higher level, the third level of the brain, which is where the logic kicks in, you got 2 more levels to go past. So you're literally trying to skip 2 levels, which have over index as far as influencing a person to take action and going for the least most influenced level within the brain. So it's a horrible way of explaining it on the fly, but that's how I think about it. People are emotional creatures. Emotions are going to hit us first. Logic's going to come second. So if I don't touch on the emotional piece, even though I sell to very logical guys, right? I see a widget, it goes out the door, right? Super logical. It is old school, blue collar kind of work. I love it. But they're still emotional people. They're still buying with emotions first.
Yeah, it protects themselves. That reptilian brain is there to protect themselves. They don't want to
100%.
be risked. They don't want to get threatened. They don't want to do themselves damage, So it makes sense. So obviously when that day hit, you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, when it hit, and I was like, okay, treat a person like a person. Don't look at this as an entity in a commission check. Look at it as someone's putting their name out on your behalf. That's what changed for me. When I realized someone is speaking on my behalf, that they're staking their reputation based on what I'm telling them, it became personal. And maybe people disagree with that in sales, but to me, this makes it very authentic for me. You're speaking on my behalf, right? You're putting your reputation on the line based on what I've shown and told you, right? I want to make sure that I absolutely deliver to you, because I feel like I have a moral obligation to make you the superstar and kick ass in your company.
Yeah.
And so when you approach it from that, I think level and kind of that energy, it's a completely different sale versus just trying to knock somebody through the process and get paid, because that old school sales doesn't work anymore.
No,
it doesn't.
You're dead right. You're dead right, which again why I bang the drum, and why I wanted to speak to you. Okay, I mean, and so again, I'm right back to the very beginning, kind of where what you're talking about there is what you said, and I'm just going to check back on my notes, where you sort of said that this is important because you don't want to tarnish your own name either. You want to get all this stuff right because you don't want to tarnish your own name, which is why you get why somebody's not going to want to tarnish their name in their organization, I guess.
It's the same thing. Our interests are aligned. You're not going to want to screw up your internal reputation. I don't want to screw up my internal and external reputation. It's in both of our interests to ensure you're successful. Period. End of story.
Okay, we're in this together. Let's collaborate, co-create.
Yeah.
Align. Well, yeah, there's so many words you could use.
Yeah.
Because that's what humans do. That's why we have so many words for it. What else? Is there any other stuff that you deliberately do to kind of build your reputation or to enhance that, to make sure that you are the go-to person?
I think I know my industry well. It's honestly professional acumen or business acumen, and I know the industry. I talked to this company we'll say their total revenue is north of 5 billion, right? This is a behemoth of a company. I talked to the VP that oversees the Americas, Canada, United States, and Mexico. The first 2 minutes in the call, I just said, hey, I'm just going to take a quick guess. Is this how things look for you? Rattled off the whole industry and what's going on. He's like, yep, that's exactly what's going on. So the fact that I can even do that, establish credibility out the door. So I think as a salesperson, one, you need to understand finance a little bit. So you need to understand the P&L and how that works and how your stuff impacts. So revenue and expenses. Two, you need to understand just general business acumen, right? What are the KPIs that your personas you're selling to care about? What do they get bonused on? What do they get graded to? And then three, you need to understand the freaking industry. Where is the industry? Is this a mature industry where people have bought this technology a whole lot? Is this the beginning of it? Is there a lot of competition or not? Is it green space, or are you ripping and replacing? Because all those are different conversations. And I think you also just need to come with a no BS attitude, right? Like a lot of sales reps come like as a vendor. I think as a business owner, I think as a CEO of a manufacturer, right? And that's how I talk to my team internally. That's how I talk to everyone in the company internally. I'm like, think about it as we're the owner of a manufacturing company, and this is the solution. How am I talking about this? What's the value? How much lift is it to get it installed? Is this in the best interest of the customer? And I think a lot of reps are vendors. They talk like vendors, they sell like vendors, and they don't understand who or what they're selling to, right? So
Yeah.
then we don't, how do we connect at that point? Because we're not at the same level because you're hawking a solution to me versus taking the time and respect to understand my industry and then to come to me with a very well constructed point of view and then working with me to help me bring that to fruition within my company.
You've explained it perfectly. And it's interesting, yeah, you're hawking the solution. It's kind of, it's almost like people are deliberately trying to behave like a vendor. You're going out of your way to do stuff which is less effective. You're playing this part, which is a stupid part to play. It's actually easier to sort of be more natural, like you're saying, and to just be good at what you do, understand them, talk about them. I'm a little guess. Let me guess. This is what's going on in your world. God, yeah, you're right. How do you know? Because I hang out in your world. You know, we like each other.
The biggest thing that drives me insane with sales reps is they use language that their customers never use. They use a vernacular that their customers never use, right? And so my biggest thing is like, do our prospects say this? Is this how they describe the business, the problems, the value that they see in our product? If our customers aren't using this language, why are we using it, right? Because if I don't sound like you as far as my vernacular, then you're kind of wondering if I'm an outsider and I even know your business. Now, again, you need to be authentic to yourself. But like, for example, when I talk to a manufacturer, I talk about manufacturing lead time because I know the difference between manufacturing lead time and lead time, right? There are very big differences there. I know the difference between throughput and on-time delivery and why these things matter, right? These are the end KPIs they care about, and I can trace that back to their P&L. I know the biggest costs of their P&L. I know how we can impact them. So I know I have the vernacular, right? I have the business acumen, their vernacular, P&L, and I know what the ICP cares about. There's like 4 or 5 things right there that make me a massively different seller than someone that just comes in and be like, oh, well, we improve availability by 30%, sign the contract.
Availability, what do you mean? Yeah.
Right. Like,
well, it's the old expression, isn't it? People like themselves. And you're basically saying, I'm like you. I'm one of you. I get how you talk about stuff. And immediately, reptile, or I love a book called The Chimp Paradox. Have you read that? Where it talks about the chimp is a bit like the reptile brain, which is always there to kind of defend you, and it gets squawky and upset if it feels as a threat. It's like the chimp doesn't need to react to you because, no, you're not a threat. You're a friend, actually. Right. That's cool. Human brain is going to talk to you. Oh, I love it. So I think we might be just starting to touch on it with that last question, but I'm going to ask the time warp question, the time travel question. If you could go back in time, 20-year-old Chris, what advice would you give yourself?
As it relates to selling, or just in general?
Well, general, if you like. Again, I'm always interested how I always ask it like that to see how people answer it. Do they go open-ended worldly advice? Is it life?
Let me
sales?
Let me kind of break it up in maybe 2 main categories: personal and professional, because that's just the way my brain thought through that question. Good. I think personal, it would be to really slow down and question like the underlying assumptions of what I use to define myself as a person. So through my 20s, I spent a lot of time figuring out, why do I care about these things? Like, why do I want the big house or the car, all this materialistic stuff? Like, what actually matters to me? And why did I say that matters? Because for a while, I had a value system that wasn't my own. It was imprinted on me. I had to work through my 20s and actually create my own value system. And I would have just told that to myself earlier, like, you're going to have to go through that. You should start questioning it. And what I'd also say to my 20-year-old self is just travel a lot more. Like, you learn so much more about yourself in the world when you hop in different countries and you get out of that comfort zone. Like, growth happens in discomfort. So see new countries, new places, and just learn. On the professional side, what I would have told myself in my 20s was, you really need to weigh out the wars that you're waging internally and ask yourself, what am I doing this for? Like if you're fighting with all these people within work or whatever it may be because you want to be right, is it worth the cost of being right, or is it worth the cost of being collaborative and reaching your end goals? Right? Because it took me a while to learn that. I'm like, no, I want it my way. I'm stubborn. But it's like my way cost me a lot. It's like, okay, well, if I was more collaborative, things would have been a hell of a lot better. And when it comes to sales, I think it goes back to those building blocks. Like you need to be authentically you. Don't put on a show because people feel that. You need to understand the business, the finances, and really walk in their worlds. And the faster you start doing those kinds of things, the better you are as a seller. You know, introvert, extrovert doesn't matter. It's can you walk in their worlds? Can you understand the impact you have? And does that come across authentically throughout your entire sales process?
Love it. No, you saw me smiling and nodding at quite a few of those. I suspect there's quite a few people listening to this of a similar age to us, but going, yeah.
Yeah.
And hopefully there's some younger people listening going, oh yeah, why not? No. That is damn good advice. It is really good. Really like
Thank
that. Now, everything you said, I loved it. You're giving me a little, as I say, little flashback to the old days. Oh yeah, I'm thinking that factory. So no, thank you so much. Where can people get in touch with you? How can they get in touch?
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn's just like the easiest platform. So Chris Von Heuen, I mean, I'm on it. It hits my phone, so I see things. So feel free to reach out there if you want to ask some questions or any way I can help out. And for those that feel like pitching all day, please just make sure the pitch is relevant because I get way too many non-relevant pitches. But hey, if it's relevant, go ahead and pitch me. I'm not against it.
Oh, no, but again, that's decent of you because again, you want to have conversations. If there's something out there you don't know, well, cool, we'll learn.
Yeah.
But yeah, just not pitch slap. Don't.
Yeah.
No, that's really decent of you, Chris. I'll put the link in the in the show notes anyway.
Perfect.
But no, thank you for coming along and talking about collaborative selling in action in real life. It's really
Awesome.
cool.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. Thank you.